Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. I think we're going to try to make this a part of the regular routine. I don't know if it's going to be daily or weekly, but I've got a toll-free number, 888-Pirillo, that you can call anytime. Usually it'll go to voicemail, but I have the ability to switch something on my Vonage router and allow you to call directly to the phones in my house. It's my ringtone. Hello, this is Chris. You got a minute?
Hey Chris, what's up? It's Protocol from the channel, and I want to make a shout out to Uncle John real quick. That's the coolest name ever. Anyways, I wanted to know what really got you into blogging, because I haven't really heard you mention much about that, and it's something that I was curious about because it seems like you spend a lot of your time, and it's what you make your living on, or so it seems.
You know, my background is in English, specifically writing, English education. So when the internet first came around in my life, I just kind of fell into writing online, and when software came about to make it easier to write and publish my thoughts, I started doing it. And then years later, it became easier to monetize my thoughts using programs like Google AdSense and other assorted and various affiliate programs. So that's kind of how I fell into it, just because I'm interested in sharing my thoughts, whether it happens to be through text, through speech, or through video.
All right, that sounds pretty sweet. Thanks for answering my call, and have a good night.
You too. Very cool. We appreciate everybody who hangs out at live.pirillo.com and 888-Pirillo, 888-7474556. Yeah, that's my voice. This is Chris.
Hey Chris, this is Ravaged again.
Howdy.
This time I have a new part to my first question. I have found a tool that can delete certain partitions on my hard drive. However, when it runs this tool, it finds my actual disk that is my C drive, and then I have a FAT16 and a FAT32 partition, and then an unallocated. I need to know which one should I actually delete, or which one should I delete in order to not lose my data but get rid of what I don't need.
Wow. Be careful. I don't know if you said that earlier that it was some installation of Linux that basically set up a partition on your hard drive. If you can find out how much space that partition was set up for, then look for the amount of space when you're going to manage that partition. So, for instance, if it took out like 40 gigabytes, then look for the partition that's set up for 40 gigabytes, and it should be one of them. I don't know if it's going to be listed as any kind of FAT system or an unallocated, but it should certainly be roughly the same size, give or take a few gigabytes, depending on how the partition is being measured.
All right, well, on here it actually shows the size in megabytes, and the FAT16 has a 31.3 megabyte. And then I get my NTFS, which is 72,669, and then I have my FAT32, which is 3,584.8, and then the unallocated is just 7.8.
I'd be careful about wiping anything FAT32 because that's likely your Windows install. Again, go back and do some documentation. Find out how much each particular partition is taking up, or at least each particular operating system is taking up on that particular disk that it's installed upon, and then from there, through a process of elimination, I would, more than just wiping it out, maybe resizing it or shrinking it as far as you can, and then go back and recalculate the numbers to see which one was shrunk or happen to be using before you wipe it out.
All right.
Cool.
Hey, thanks a lot, man, and I hope I get voiced in the IRC soon, but thanks for answering the questions, thanks for doing this. You know, you're a really cool guy, and you're helping people every day, so thanks for that.
We're trying. Can't do it without you. Thanks again.
Thanks, bye.
No problem. Technical question, so we let it go a little over a minute, but, it's certainly worth talking about. Some people have multiple operating systems in their computer, and having some kind of partition tool is helpful. I want to see if I can get everybody some kind of discount on Partition Magic, which has always been one of my favorite partition managers.
This is Chris. Hey Chris, this is Harshnado Handel from the channel.
Howdy.
And I really had a quick question: is that do you really think Apple is ever going to open up their operating system to install in any regular PCs?
Gosh, I hope so. I think it's the only way it's going to be able to survive. Um, Apple, in many ways, has more predatory practices than I think Microsoft does, or certainly can get away with. You know, the open IBM architecture really allowed PCs to flourish. Of course, it introduced a lot of problems, but in the process, made it easier to standardize. It made it cheaper to actually get involved in the whole world of clones and in the PC environment. Apple really does need to start opening up a lot more. I appreciate the elegance they provide in the hardware and certainly in the operating system, but it makes me very nervous to know that it is closed. I think we're going to inch our way towards there. Eventually, the idea of a desktop operating system will be minimal. You'll have powerful underlying core operating system components like Linux, and then on top of that, these fantastic user interfaces that will allow you to interoperate with just about anything. Pretty soon, you won't even be thinking about Linux versus Windows versus Mac. You'll just be thinking, this is the computing experience that I can choose to use it this way, or this way.
Okay, can I just ask a really quick question again?
Sure.
Is there any superior difference between the HFS format and NTFS format?
The HFS versus NTFS?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about two different, well, number one, file systems for two completely different platforms.
Right. So, I mean, is there any difference why Apple is choosing over NTFS or Microsoft is choosing NTFS over that?
Is there any reason? Well, I suppose if they're controlling the operating system, they certainly want to control how the file system interoperates with the actual hardware component. I mean, you need both of them in order to have a working computer. Apple has just recently made an announcement that they're getting ready to embrace a 128-bit file system, and I think they're licensing that from Sun, if I'm not mistaken. Ultimately, it boils down to, how the operating system manufacturer really wants to evolve the operating system. Apple, I think, has done a much more elegant job with, interacting with the system, not just with the processor, but specifically in the hard drives and the data and how it's written and how it's stored. It's handled the transition from 32-bit to 64-bit a lot more elegantly than Windows has, and certainly that plays a part in the processor, but it also plays a part in the way that files are stored and accessed on the hard drive. You could get into a religious war on which is a more elegant file system, HFS versus NTFS or any derivation thereof. Ultimately, though, it just boils down to the optimizations that are made when the actual, constructs are put forth. And so, it's just go with whatever sets. Honestly, go with whatever happens to be the default for the operating system, and then you should be fine.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. And in the Knowndex conference we saw online, I think that was the first ever anybody to do, to see a conference live online. It was a great experience, and thanks a lot for whatever you do.
Sure, no problem. Appreciate it. Yeah, dealing with these file systems in relation to processors, in relation to all this mess of 64-bit versus 124-bit or 128-bit versus 32-bit. That's the processor line. The dealing with disk space is a completely different subject, and how those files are written and stored and accessed from any variety of operating systems. And ultimately, it just boils down to, honestly, even adjusting the way the file system works for the type of environment that you're in. A lot of people who do work with larger file sizes may find better performance on one file system over another. But again, what it boils down to is, dealing with the environment that comes with the machine, because it's likely going to be the average use case for how it's typically. No, hard disks and hard drives are, something that once they're set up, it's usually best that you leave them that way. This is Chris.
This is Zach the Big Man.
Hey.
From the chat room.
Yes.
was wondering, what do you think is a lot harder to program, hardware or software?
Oh God. Well, considering I don't know either one very well or elegantly, I would say probably hardware, just because of the complexities that happen when you deal with physical something rather. Programming software has certainly got a lot more flexibility in the sense that it's easy to recompile code that you've created and work through the bugs that way. Whereas if you've actually manufactured a piece of hardware and there's a design flaw, well, then you're talking about spending a lot more money getting a better piece of hardware made or prototype made or circuit board or whatever happened to be a point of failure. Software can always be upgraded over time, certainly evolve through the programming process, but hardware, pretty much once it's made, it's kind of made.
Oh, I have another question here.
Sure.
How do you convert media files, like any kind?
Well, I use different tools. I mean, I find that there's actually two tools that I use on OS X, and I can't find a decent Windows alternative. There's Total Video Converter for Windows, which I'm not happy with at all, but it's very, very powerful. But on OS X, I like Visual Hub and FFmpeg X.
Oh, okay. I have that program, but I have no idea how to use it. How do you use that?
Well, that's kind of a long answer. Honestly, it's easy to use. You drag and drop, and then you tell it what you want to convert it into. That's FFmpeg X. It's pretty easy to use. And then Visual Hub is even easier. You literally say, here are the files I want to convert, and this is what I want to convert it into. It takes no learning at all. Well, in my mind, it takes no learning. I mean, obviously you learn, but I mean, you don't have to think about it. It's right there in the application.
Oh, okay. I thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
No problem. Of course, there's also zamzar.com. There's nothing to install. You just go to zamzar.com, browse for the file, upload that file, and then it'll convert it and then give it to you in a format that you choose in the second part of the process. After you upload it, you decide what you want to convert it into. That's even easier because then there's nothing to install, and the service happens to be absolutely free. Free. I'm competing with my own voice. This is Chris.
Hi, it's Sanguifuser again. I actually have an answer to the last person's question.
Oh, cool.
If that's okay with you.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, I know there are plenty of places. Did you just type in media-convert.com?
Well, that's the one that came off the top of my head. But there's also a Windows program. Assuming he's using Windows, it's called Super, which stands for Simplified Universal Player Encoder and Renderer.
Oh, God, it is
and
like...
from what I found...
Oh, yeah, but it's like the worst user experience ever.
Oh, it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it.
What?
The guy just drag file to the list.
Oh!
You're encoding
No! No! Have you ever seen FFmpeg X on OS X?
No. But
Okay.
I'm guessing it's supposedly a whole lot easier?
Yeah. Like, to the nth degree. Like, literally, you drag and drop a file on there. It tells you everything about it. Then you say, here's what I want to save it out as. Boom. Super is the world's most super cluttered program on, anybody's desktop in the entire galaxy. It's so bad, I can't even complete a proper sentence.
Well, I'll give you that, but it worked for me, so it might work for someone else.
That's okay. It's a solution. Certainly is. I can't harm you for that.
Well, I'll give some other people some more time. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks,
Bye.
Sangofuser. Calling in on a rotary dial phone, of all things. I can't believe I actually took that call. I didn't even think they made rotary dial phones anymore. The last time I even saw something that was close to a rotary dial, it was Nokia had a phone where the numbers were not... It wasn't... This is Chris. Uh-oh. Hey! Uh-oh. Yeah, that didn't work too well. You can try calling back, 888-PIRILLO, 888-747-4556. What I was saying, I had a Nokia phone that the numbers were laid out like a rotary dial, but they were actually a dial tone little push buttons. I still have nightmares of dialing a number on a rotary dial phone or rotary phone and screwing up like the fifth number in and then having to start all over again. Oh God, the days before redial. Oh, oh my God.
Phone. Phone.
Oh man, that's two in a row. Although that was a different person who just called in there. By the way, I got to show you this particular phone system that I have. I can never remember the model number. KXTGA571S. You can record your own ringtones directly onto each phone, and that's why I've got each one of them saying or singing. Try to make them harmonic and everything, and that setup. In fact, I can show you how to do that in a couple minutes, but not right now. Seems like everybody's gone to bed at 12:35 a.m. So we'll have to open up the phone lines again and see what happens.